Well, Mike, we've learned the female suspect in this case has two young children and recently worked at a McDonald's restaurant in South Carolina. Tyler Terry, on the other hand, has had drug and assault charges in the past, and tonight he's on the run facing murder and attempted murder charges in both St. Louis and South Carolina. Well, just moments ago in this area, we see another ambulance responding to a call about a possible overdose. Residents who live in this area say a site like this is becoming all too common.
The ambulances have been going nonstop for the past 2 days.
St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner says she was alarmed to see video of protesters being met with guns Sunday. While her office is investigating, we decided to take a look at the laws surrounding personal property and your rights to defend yourself. Kay, I'm at St. Louis University Hospital, a level 1 trauma center where the officer was taken shortly after he was shot early this morning around 5:30 a.m. We are being told he is still alive. He's getting treatment for his injuries, and at last check, he was facing life-threatening injuries. Now, State Police Director Brendan Kelly is in the building. We're expecting him to give us an update on that officer's condition at any moment now. As you mentioned, we are not releasing the name of that officer until the Illinois State Police officially release it first. We'll be back with that press conference as soon as it begins. For now, I'll send it back to the studio. Yeah, it's still a really bad situation here. You can see cars stalled, and take a look at those two men down there. I believe they are MoDOT workers or emergency workers. Either way, we can hear them giving very specific directions to these motorists, telling them to go fast, go 40 miles an hour at least. And why do they need to go fast? Because they're about to go up a hill. Well, this really gives you a good idea of how much snow has fallen since it started around 1 o'clock. But some really important advice from MoDOT. If you are one of these people stuck in your cars, do not get out. Wait for help, keep yourself safe, and don't go on the roads. We'll continue to keep you updated. Art, back to you. Well, it's important to note evidence in this case was tested and retested over the years, but it was at the end of February when that testing finally paid off. Investigators were able to get a sample of DNA off a little piece of Angie's underwear. Now, that DNA led them to a suspect. That's 61-year-old Earl Webster Cox. Missouri's 2nd Congressional District hasn't elected a Democrat since 1993, and it's a little bit too early, perhaps, to say if that will change tonight with Senator Jill Shoup.
911 each day. Good evening. I'm Mike Bush.
And I'm Ann Allred, in for Kay Quinn. Investigative reporter PJ Randhawa wanted to know what was behind these delays and went straight to the city for answers. PJ?
Well, Mike and Ann, we know at least 2 older people and several of my colleagues have run into this issue. They called 911 to report an accident or a crime, and they're put on hold, sometimes for several minutes at a time. When you're in danger or witnessing a crime, every second counts.
We called about 9 o'clock.
When a hit and run happened on Ward 23 Alderman Joe Vaquero Street, some of his neighbors took the risky move of following the driver. Vaquero called 911. He was put on hold for almost 15 minutes.
Actually, by the time the police got here on a hit and run accident was 11:30.
I realize it's very frustrating and it could even be frightening for people.
Dan Isom, the city's interim director of public safety, says the city's 911 system receives between 12 and 1,800 calls per day, and there aren't enough dispatchers to handle them.
We are short maybe 30 dispatchers right now. We just lifted a hiring freeze, so we're in the process of working with the police department and also our personnel division.
Isom says between 6 to 7 dispatchers are on each shift.
The majority of times that you are put on hold, there are a number of people who have called before, and that call has been answered and a car has been dispatched.
My daughter is, she does work up there at 911. She's a supervisor. I'm very aware of all the problems that are going on up there.
Vaquero says hiring is a good long-term solution, but the issue could be fixed in the meantime with scheduling changes.
The city is still using 3 8-hour shifts. If they would simply, they have the manpower. If they go to 2 12-hour shifts until they get the proper amount of people trained, it would solve the problem. It should be that simple.
Now, dispatchers go through up to 80 hours of training in the classroom and on the job as well. The salaries we found range from $31,000 all the way up to $61,000. We have more information on how you can apply for some of these vacant dispatcher jobs on our website. Just look for this story at KSDK.com. For the I-Team, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side.
Now, both Tyler and Simpson are suspects in multiple crimes in South Carolina, and tonight investigators there are still trying to take one of them into custody. The I-Team's PJ Randhawa picks up the trail of the suspected killers and the manhunt that's still underway.
Well, Mike, we've learned the female suspect in this case has 2 young children and recently worked at a McDonald's restaurant in South Carolina. Tyler Terry, on the other hand, has had drug and assault charges in the past, and tonight he's on the run facing murder and attempted murder charges in both St. Louis and South Carolina. On Monday night, deputies in Chester County, South Carolina, attempted to pull over Tyler Terry and Adrian Simpson. They were in a vehicle with plates stolen from St. Louis. They led deputies on a high-speed chase before crashing.
He fired shots, multiple shots at my deputies.
Terry escaped into a wooded area. Simpson was identified as the driver and arrested on the scene.
At this point, we have 7 major case, University City and other officers going to fly down to South Carolina and interview her.
Police are still searching for Terry, locking down local schools and warning residents to lock their doors. They released this footage of him earlier today.
He's considered armed and dangerous. We're seeking warrants at this time for attempted murder.
And more murder charges may be coming. Just yesterday, South Carolina police found the body of Simpson's husband in a ditch. Police are investigating if the pair were involved in his murder. Meantime, police have issued warrants for Terry in yet another murder in a neighboring county. That same day, police say Terry shot up a Taco Bell drive-thru. They believe Simpson was involved in those crimes as well.
The way this appears is that this modern-day version of Bonnie and Clyde, what they did between South Carolina and Missouri, we don't know yet.
Well, police in South Carolina still working right now to issue charges in many of those crimes that we mentioned. And as local police mentioned, they don't appear to have any ties to this area, so it's unlikely that Tyler Terry would come back. But we'll keep you updated on the manhunt that's currently underway. Right now, live in University City, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side. Well, it's important to note evidence in this case was tested and retested over the years, but it was at the end of February when that testing finally paid off. Investigators were able to get a sample of DNA off a little piece of Angie's underwear. Now, that DNA led them to a suspect. That's 61-year-old Earl Webster Cox. Now, Cox has a long history of sexually abusing children. He's currently incarcerated in a North Carolina federal prison for peddling thousands of images of child pornography. He's from the St. Louis area and he was living near Angie at the time of her murder. But prosecutors also believe there may be other people involved in the murder. One person who hasn't been ruled out as of today is Ron Bone, Angie's stepfather. He spoke with us earlier today.
Then he actually over to that hammer slaps down and said he's guilty. You know, it still gets slapped down and say, hey, he's not guilty. Kill him. You ain't got to worry about him anymore.
He deserves the death penalty, and he deserves it tomorrow. He doesn't deserve to live what he did to that little girl. She was sweet and innocent. Horrible.
Now, Cox also has ties to the Ferguson and Overland areas, and we're hearing he may be charged for sex crimes in those areas as well, dating back to the late 80s and early 90s. He is currently in North Carolina, as I mentioned, in a federal prison, and he'll be coming back to Missouri in the next couple of weeks to answer for these charges. Reporting in St. Charles County, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side.
The I-Team is breaking down how Missouri law may very well be on their side. Here's investigative reporter PJ Randhawa.
St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner says she was alarmed to see video of protesters being met with guns Sunday. While her office is investigating, we decided to take a look at the laws surrounding personal property and your rights to defend yourself.
Some people might say, well, why didn't they just go back into their homes, into their home And you could argue that as a practical matter, but the law says you don't have to retreat.
John Amon, professor emeritus with the St. Louis University School of Law, says most of the actions taken by the McCloskeys Sunday appear to be protected by numerous state laws.
They have the open carry law in Missouri that allows them to have their guns in public. We have the Castle Doctrine that says you can defend your house and your lives and your property. And we have the law that says you can stand your ground and you don't need to retreat.
The McCloskeys told protesters they were on private property on a private street, but people walk down private streets all the time. Amon says that doesn't necessarily mean homeowners can threaten you with a weapon.
If a neighbor is having people over for a picnic and they're walking down the street to a neighbor's house, this couple surely can't go in their front yard and point guns at them. And of course, it creates a lot of practical problems if you think that you're the private security guard for the entire neighborhood.
So could the gun-wielding attorneys who are making headlines across the world find themselves in legal trouble? Amon says any charge would be a long shot. The couple claims at least one protester threatened them with a gun, and that's their ultimate legal defense.
The end result might be, hey, there was technically illegal behavior on both sides, and we're going to come up with a plan to deal with it. That gets a little complicated. This is the new frontier of protesting in St. Louis, because a few years ago, you would not have seen the police backing off and allowing people to take over entire streets with protest.
For the I-Team, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side.